I don't take nothing that a doctor don't prescribe. I just take Paxil, Xanax, Zoloft, Flomax, morphine, Valtrex, Flonase, Plavix, codeine, Zyrtec, Zoma, Zantac, Ultram, Zocor, Zipro, Prozac, dopamine, Demerol, Lexapro, Tylenol, Vicodin, Lyrica, Lipitor, and Adderall, but I don't do no drugs, man.
Hey everyone, it's Dr. Beard, and I am again joined by Anna Allen. Got it right this time. And we have an interesting episode today, which I think is probably going to interest many people. We're going to talk about the root causes of weight issues and a lot of common misconceptions that just will not go away. And then, of course, there's some new ones that have arrived on the scene that have taken over that just aren't true or helpful either.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, especially with the new year coming, 2025.
Always on people's minds.
Always on people's mind after the holiday season. I know we've been posting a lot of that on social media, but holiday season is here, New Year's coming, and when it does come, it often comes with wanting to start fresh.
Yes.
And how do I lose this weight? But I feel like it often leads to the same thing the following year.
Right.
Not really addressing
the root causes.
What's going on. Yeah.
I think the root causes have been ignored for a very long time, and some of them may not come as a shock. But I think a lot of times when you talk about root causes, people want to roll their eyes because they feel like they've addressed them, but they really haven't.
Right.
And that's what I see in my practice a lot. And there's just a lot of frustration. I think a lot of unrealistic expectations. And so, we have a lot of people that come to us with a whole host of issues, right? And weight is one of those. They've gained weight, they can't lose the weight. And when you start working with them, a lot of things will start getting better, but they're not losing the weight that they wanted to. Right. But all signs point to a body that is starting to become in balance again.
Right.
And it's starting to function like it's supposed to. And if they would just stick with it, the weight would eventually come off. Now, that doesn't mean we can't change focus and get a little bit more intensive with what we do. But there's this expectation that they should have lost weight from the very get-go.
Mm-hmm. Like it's the first thing to happen.
Yeah, and they ignore all the other things,
right.
The positive things that are happening in their body.
Yeah.
I see it all the time.
Yes. That's so important.
Yeah.
And that's what's common about so many conditions.
Yeah.
Weight loss. It's like
right.
The one thing that you're searching for seems to be the last to kind of fall on the table, but at the same time, there's always wins that are happening too.
Yeah. And you had you had researched some stats about the weight issue we have in the United States.
Right.
And so would you go over those? Because they're
it's
startling.
It's startling. And we see it, we know it. We live here, so we see it happening.
I mean, you were a dietitian. I was too.
Yeah.
So we have known about this for a long time.
Yeah.
But it's only gotten worse.
Right. It's not getting better.
No.
Which is the reason that we both left the field.
Right.
Likely. And so that's the hardest part, is knowing these really severe facts and being like, what we're doing isn't working.
Right.
So I'm so excited today to talk about if what we're being told isn't working, what will work?
Right.
Or what are the causes there? And like you said, these statistics can be really startling. 73% of the U.S. is overweight. And that's just overweight.
And overweight means, I think, a BMI of
over 25%.
Over 25%.
Yeah.
And what this gets a lot of people because we have now normalized being overweight.
Yes.
I had an aunt recently say to me at Thanksgiving, "Girl, you do not need to lose any more weight." And I'm like, I'm actually right where my ideal body weight is.
Right.
And 10 pounds heavier than when I was last year when I was dealing with an undiagnosed alpha-gal allergy.
Yes.
Where I couldn't, wasn't even eating.
Right.
So I think people have kind of normalized being overweight. And if you are at an ideal body weight, they're like, you need to eat.
Yes.
You know?
Right. And BMI has its problems.
Right. Yes, it is not perfect. No, it's not.
But it's still, when you look at the statistics, this is typical.
Yeah.
Obviously, there's certain scenarios where you might be a higher BMI, but you might have more muscle mass.
Yes.
Or in a different...
And that's the case with
yes.
me. I am more of a mesomorph.
Yes.
Tend to have a little more muscle than a lot of people
Right.
do, but I know other people have a lot more than me, and they would be classified as overweight, and you're like, this person is ripped.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. So this is not blanket.
Absolute.
But in general, that's still really significant to say for the general public, this is a good marker, and 73% of the U.S. overweight.
And you see it.
You do. Yeah, and you take a look at obese, and it's 42%.
That's terrifying.
Just almost half. I mean...
42% are obese.
Yeah.
That, and, all of this, this new trend of, you can be healthy at any weight, or the body positivity movement. Do not fall for that. That is being forced upon you by people who do not have your best interest at heart.
Yeah.
Being obese is not healthy. And just because, you might be, let's say you're in your 20s or 30s and you're obese. But when you go to the doctor, maybe your blood pressure is fine, or your CBC or CMP is fine. That is not a measure of true health. No. Your doctors don't even know really what to check because they weren't taught such things. Yeah, they might check a hemoglobin A1C, fasting blood sugar. They're not going to check a fasting insulin. They're not going to have you wear a continuous glucose monitor unless you have diabetes. So don't let those 14 lab values, deceive you into thinking that you're healthy when you're carrying around a lot of excessive weight.
Right. And I don't think anyone would deny that obesity is not a problem,
Oh,
we just see it all the time now. It's become normalized, I think, is the key. But, seeing that it is majority of our population currently, there is a problem.
Well, I'm not saying it's coming from the doctors per se. It's coming from outside of that with the whole body positivity movement.
Oh, absolutely.
Which is sickening to me.
Yes. And, there's a lot of factors that we can dive into why that's happening. But, we've become way more sedentary as a society in so many ways, just working behind a computer.
Yeah.
Often. One statistic said that average Americans spend 7 to 10 hours a day
sitting.
Yeah.
We've never done that.
Typical work day, which is so sad.
It's the new smoking, right? And I would totally agree with that. Being sedentary is one of the main drivers of excessive weight.
Right.
And really in how you're spending those times too while you're sedentary, or also doing things to your body depending on what it is, which we can talk about later.
Yeah, definitely. And we know that, like you said, the body positivity movement isn't helping because you're ending up with chronic.
And I'm not shaming you if you're overweight. Mm-hmm. I just see when you're carrying excessive weight, I know something is not right. Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And that's all I'm saying.
Yes. And we'll dive into why.
Yeah.
In a little bit.
Yeah.
But $73 billion yearly medical expenses.
100.
Obesity related.
173 billion.
Yeah, 173 billion.
And I'd say that's just, prescriptions, hospital stays. That's probably not including time off work, quality of life, and how it trickles down and affects your family members. And the other one that was horrifying was the one about the children. So kids aged 2 to 19, in this group, 20% are considered obese.
Yeah. Not even looking at overweight.
No.
It's just obese, yeah.
When I was a child in middle school, teenage years, we may have had 1 or 2 kids in the class that carried extra weight. None of them were obese. They were just chunky. Now I look at kids out and about. I observe people. That's what I do. I'm a doctor, but a lot of you do too. I know a lot of you like to people watch, so you're seeing the same thing. and the kids are chunky. And this is at a time when their metabolic rate is at the highest it can be.
Right.
So if we're already struggling right now, it's only going to get worse. And there's a lot of reasons why these kids are struggling with their weight at an early age. Antibiotics is one. That's an alarming thing. The use of antibiotics, we've already know that when you use antibiotics before the age of 2, your risk of obesity goes up tremendously because of what it does to the GI microbiome at an early age, and just sets you on a course for all kinds of other things that often have more antibiotics thrown at it, and just the state of inflammation that ensues that is really never addressed except with more medications.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, it's sad.
Crazy to think about, especially from like an infant standpoint. You know how many, even
Yeah.
just from an age where they can't even control it.
Right.
They're being affected in so many ways. Their risk is going up in so many ways.
Yes.
But if someone's listening to this and they're like, okay, I am overweight, obese, and I've done it all. Let's talk about, what is being taught as the gold standard for weight loss. Maybe what we've been taught in dietetics school, med school, all the things and what you see on weight loss coaches, trainers. You will hear them say it's all about calories in, calories out.
And I think that's what we've learned as dietitians and MDs is it comes down to calories. And that's what you'll hear from your doctor. At least that's what I hear from my patients. Or like, my doctor just says I need to, eat healthy. That's without any guidelines. Or maybe they'll say, Mediterranean diet. They'll throw that in, or send them to a dietitian, and exercise more. Yeah. And that is the extent of the counseling that they get. And that can mean a lot of things. And having done this for a while, I can tell you that I have patients come to me all the time who have done this. They're eating Mediterranean and, walking or cardio of some sort, and they are just stuck. And they're frustrated, and I'm doing what the doctor says, but nothing's working.
Right. So the average or the most common next step is, I guess I need to eat less.
Yeah. Or, it's eat less. More salads, right? More salads, less fat. That's a big one. You can't eat, got to stay away from that saturated fat in general. Oh, you need to reduce your sodium intake.
Even dairy. Take out dairy.
Oh, yeah. Take out the dairy.
Only drink almond milk.
Yeah. What's another one? Whole grains.
Yes.
Right. The American Dietetic Association, I feel, has made matters so much worse. The things that absolute trash recommendations I see them make is horrible. They're having these people just basically carb load all day.
Oh yeah.
And
which carbs are good, but what kind of carbs are we eating?
And that tells me they really don't understand how the body works. The doctors don't either. I mean, really, I know. I went through the education. They really don't understand, and we weren't really taught what all is impacting your metabolism. It's always just about thyroid function. Thyroid, that's the only thing that affects what affects your thyroid function? They never take it upstream. They only take it to the point where it's sufficient for you to prescribe medications.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I've harped on that for
every
podcast we do.
Yeah. Well, so what is the real problem you see with that mindset of calories in, calories out, low fat, more exercise, cardio burns fat.
Right.
Those concepts that are infiltrated into our media, education, medical system.
Right.
What is really the biggest problem with that mindset?
So this is my take, and this is what I've seen and experienced as a functional medicine doctor who has also, been on the other side. The calories in, calories out. I'm not saying calories don't matter, okay? It's still energy. But not all calories are created equal. 100 calories of Coca-Cola and 100 calories of an avocado are going to do different things to the body. One is going to promote inflammation. The other is going to reduce it. So you kind of have to start thinking of your foods in that way. Now, if all of your calories are coming from high quality foods, that's a different story. But a lot of people are just focusing on calories and they're eating absolute crap. The Weight Watchers stuff. You know, it's not organic, it's GMO, it's low quality ingredients. The quality of your food matters greatly. Most of what we eat today or have access to, I don't even really consider it food. It's food-like, but it's not real food. And we have fallen into the convenience world, right, where it's all about convenience, and convenience is killing us.
Right, and I think that also comes from this idea that macros are the only thing that matters. So as long as your proteins, fats, and carbs are in the perfect ratio, it does not matter where that macro is coming from. So you see this huge influx, and you'll see if you go to any grocery store, of protein everything. Protein chips, protein bars, protein cakes, protein
I'm sorry,
cookies.
but that's just, it's ludicrous.
Yeah, but it's
sells.
It sells.
Man, does it sell. And I know a lot of people who were, and we'll talk about Carnivore, but just plates loaded up with the lowest quality, just bacon. Yeah. You know, I'm not bacon hating, if it comes from a good source, you know, but it was just full of protein that was poor quality. And that doesn't even count all the other things they're completely ignoring, right? So people get hung up on just food, which matters. What you eat absolutely matters when it comes to weight loss, but everybody's different, and the quality absolutely matters, even when you're doing macros. And that's where I see a lot of people go wrong with their macros. It's just the quality is not there.
Right.
And when it comes to the exercise, you have people doing a lot of cardio when their body is in a state of HPA axis dysfunction, and it's making matters worse. It's too stressful for the body at that point in their lives. For whatever reasons, which we will get into why their body is in a state of HPA axis dysfunction, they'll be doing a lot of cardio, and it's only making matters worse. Whereas I have had to tell people to stop getting up at 4 a.m. in the morning to go do CrossFit or your HIIT workouts and sleep instead. Or, hey, you're running all the time and you're lifting zero weights. And I feel like if we've focused so much on cardio and we've left weight training kind of off the table. And for me, I think it just needs to be completely reversed. Because if you think about it from an evolutionary ancestral perspective, which I try to do with everything now, it's like when in our history were people running all the time, that what they were doing, they were walking and they were doing a lot of manual labor. They were lifting stuff, picking stuff up, pulling stuff throughout the day.
Right.
So they were maintaining, they had muscle.
Yes. And just to take a step back, would you briefly explain what is HPA axis dysfunction?
So HPA stands for hypothalamus pituitary adrenal axis. So you have these organs that speak to one another, and they have these feedback controls in place to try to keep the body in a state of homeostasis. We all have stress, and you have to have a little bit of stress to keep the body primed. But when there's excessive stress in your life, from a variety of reasons that happens, it's not just mental, and emotional stress. There's other ways that are stressors to the body. That axis will start to shift in a way to preserve the body. And it will do it at the expense of other functions of the body. Typically the ones that are for procreation, it will start to impact thyroid function and your hormones. And your gut health, so that it can maintain as best it can what it feels like is trying to keep you alive in this state of chronic stress.
Right. Yeah, and I love that you brought that up because so many people are struggling with, to some degree, like you mentioned before we started this, some degree of HPA axis dysfunction. There's so many stressors happening, and maybe it's not mental, emotional stress, but like you said, even when I was struggling with HPA axis dysfunction, some pretty severe HPA axis dysfunction a couple of years ago, the stressors were the things you just mentioned, the 6 a.m. workouts, fasted, or grabbing the protein bar for breakfast instead of focusing on nutrient-dense foods.
Because all proteins are not created equal either.
No. You'd take into consideration bioavailability and so many other things. But, I feel like that is a hindrance for so many people when they're like, what is going on?
Yeah.
I'm doing all the things correctly, quote unquote, but nothing's shifting. My weight's not shifting. My gut's not shifting.
I'm getting fatter.
Yes.
I've got belly fat. Yeah. My face is puffy. And that's what I hear a lot. And I'm like, I know why. I just reviewed your chart. Before I even spoke to you, I already had some red flags were already waving. And then as you talk to the patient, it just becomes very apparent what's going on. They don't always like to hear what I have to say about fixing it because it's not always a quick fix. Once you get, and the HP, when it comes to HPA axis dysfunction, there are stages. And as you 1, 2, 3, 3A, B, C, however you want to label it. Once you get to that, 3C stage, you're in such a hole that it takes a lot to dig yourself out of that. But it seems like, once you reach that, weight is not even an issue anymore because you're in a state of where your body is actually breaking itself down and you have no appetite. So these patients, when they've reached that, have, just it's bad, and it takes a long time to dig out of that. It's absolutely possible, though. It just takes some time.
Yeah, a quick 10-day weight loss program.
So I'm like, don't wait until all the wheels have fallen off. When you first feel those symptoms, go seek out a functional medicine, preferably certified, preferably with some experience too, who can help you get back on track and who doesn't offer just quick fixes.
Right. That's so important.
I don't do that. No. And I'm upfront and honest with people. But if you will address the foundations of and the reasons why you got to that place and you understand it, you'll lose the weight and you'll never go back there again. And that's what we try to do with our patients.
Yeah, I love that. So speaking of, we talked about HPA axis dysfunction, definitely contributing factor to maybe weight loss resistance, excess weight gain. What other root causes are you seeing for weight loss resistance or weight gain in practice? So it's people don't think about.
Yeah, so there's a lot of mediators for weight problems. And you're always peeling back the onion, right? So people are like, oh, my thyroid it's my thyroid. Well, why is your thyroid not working? It's my hormones. Well, why are your hormones out of balance? Or, I know my gut's a mess. Well, why is your gut a mess? And they're all playing with one another. So when you manipulate one, you're manipulating the others. And so gut health has a huge role in your metabolism because of the way that it acts on every organ of your body. They're all related. So you have to address your gut health and all the things that impact your gut health. You have to make sure you're getting restorative sleep and enough of it. And you're going to have to address the mental and emotional stressors in your life. Are you one of those that burns the candle at both ends because you always have, and you feel that's just the way that it's always that's just the way it's supposed to be? I see people do that, just have overscheduled lives, who have been able to function that way for a while, but then boom, their body's like, done. I can't, the HPA axis can no longer keep things in, at a state of where they can, function like that anymore. And so that's all a big one. It's just overscheduled lives. They've got their selves in a place where, both mom and dad have to work a lot to maintain a lifestyle that they feel they have to have. There's a lot of difficult discussions I have to have with people, but I only do it, I'm not doing it to be mean. I'm just like, you need to consider this. But I see that a lot. I see this more and more, spiritual issues that are just really messed up beliefs about who God is and who they are and what God wants for them, or God's punishing them, or and that just feeds into the emotional and mental chaos that is always going to impact the HPA axis. Just this state of where you feel this anxiety, this inner anxiety that is always going to impact your metabolism at some level, some way, whether it's your gut health, your thyroid function, your HPA axis. So that's a big one that I keep seeing more and more of. Of course, we tend to get patients who know we are faith-based. So, but even we still get people who aren't. And we have to approach that topic carefully.
Right, which is still such an important topic, because I feel like, one of the first things I learned in my functional nutrition training was that one of the biggest stressors in your life can be existential angst.
Yes.
A lack of purpose.
Mm-hmm.
And that transformed my whole perspective on health. Because so many people in our generation and, generations and just all across the board, there's a lack of purpose. Even in Christians.
Yeah.
There's a lack of purpose there. And it is causing so much stress.
So much stress.
On your body. Yeah,
and God absolutely does not want that. That's not how He wants us to live. So that's a big one. The not get, like we already talked about the sleep. And man, there's a lot of things that even if you are going to bed at an appropriate time and you're allowing yourself rest, you may not be getting restorative sleep. And why is that? We've talked about, the phones and electronics. Big problem when it comes to that. Not getting outside, which the sun regulates your biological rhythms. And I feel like most people who come to see me, their biological rhythms are so out of whack because they're not exposing themselves to the sun. They're rarely getting outside. The sun dictates the biological functions occurring in your body. Yeah. And we're just ignoring that. And so everybody's clock is completely off.
Right, your hunger cues.
Your hormones. Everything is based on the sun.
Which is definitely going to affect weight. It's definitely going
to
affect gut health, hormones, HPA axis
right.
dysfunction.
And then, of course, the last one, which is a tough one for a lot of people, is high toxic burdens. And we're exposed to toxins, in so many different ways. And I was talking to a health coach yesterday while I was out shopping for a Christmas party dress. And we were talking about how both of us had it's how we are addressing this in our own lives. And you just chip away at it, right? And we're like, okay, we've both stopped coloring our hair. Mm-hmm. We went gray, and that was a big step. We no longer get cosmetic procedures. We are, what we use to clean our homes and wash our clothes and our shampoos and our soaps, that's all gone natural. And those are great first steps. Our cooking utensils. Yeah. The food we consume, it's organic, it's, quality meats, grass-fed beef. And so we're trying to eliminate all sources of GMOs. And so that's a great place for most people to start, but most people don't have any idea of where toxins are coming from and how they've crept into their lives.
Right. And for someone who's like, okay, I get it, go toxin free, move towards that direction, how is that connected to my weight? Can you explain kind of why toxins can contribute to
They're
that
endocrine
weight?
disruptors, especially the petroleum-based ones. They will disrupt the way your endocrine system works. A lot of them act like estrogens, and high estrogen states are notorious for causing weight issues for a variety of reasons. From a pathophysiology stance that I'm not going to get into, and then of course there's the pesticides and herbicides and what they do to the body, and heavy metals, mercury, lead, arsenic. Those are going to affect your endocrine system and do a lot of other things to your body. And over time, depending on your exposures and how well you've been able to rid yourself of these, they will often accumulate in your fat cells and other tissues in your body. Your body has a beautiful detoxification system, but many people are just exposing themselves to so many that they can't get rid of them faster than what they're being exposed to. And their body is in a state of such imbalance and poor health that their body can't do it effectively.
Yeah, and I think that's huge because people are so quick to say, I have a liver, I have a detoxification system, there's no need. All these toxins that are coming at me, my body can handle it. But I think people do not realize the amount that we have today that we did not have, hundreds of years ago or hundreds of years ago. And that's why it's become such a problem.
And then if you throw on the fact that they're eating terribly, they're stressed out, not sleeping, over exercising, you've now, your detoxification system is just like, I give up. It's not going to work effectively. And we have just removed ourselves from so many common sense practices that help these things. And they're simple. That it's really not rocket science for an overwhelming majority of people. Now, I'm not saying there aren't special cases where intensive detoxification protocols are necessary, and then you throw in medications, and most people take medications now, and so weight issues might not be listed as a side effect, but I guarantee you in some way it's going to impact the way your body functions. And I know that there's several researchers that feel like most of the medications are probably 90% are going to directly somehow affect the GI microbiome. Well, that's the foundation for your metabolism. So you have to, I feel like when a lot of people come to me, they're on, 8 meds. I'm like, we can't just jerk people off of a lot of these. That some of them are on antidepressants and other things that you have to wean off of. And, so we get to a point where we think we can start taking them off, and we do as quickly as we can without it, major backfires. But until then, we're just trying to mitigate the side effects of the meds. So there's a lot going on that you have to consider, but it's absolutely possible. What I tell people is if you will just give your body what it needs, remove what it doesn't, practice some patience, your body will respond in kind and start working like it should, meaning the weight will eventually come off. Yeah. It's just not going to happen in the first 30 days. No. Although we have people who, I'm shocked at some of the people who lose, 18 pounds in the first month. And now a lot of that is fluid from inflammation. Yeah. That happens a lot. Men lose weight easier. Just going to say it. There's reasons for that. Maybe it's they have a lot more muscle mass. Women have different stressors, I think. Hormones are always going to play a part too, but women can still do it as well.
Yeah. That's right.
It's just, it's that there's some expectations that have to be kind of brought back into reality for some.
Right. A lot of expectations. Yeah, it's like the first expectations of, I want to lose weight immediately.
And then they have all these issues, like all these other problems. They're so
many factors.
Yeah,
someone could probably ask you, Amy, you're a doctor, what do I need to do to lose weight? And
I get that all the time.
You can't just say X, Y, Z.
I don't even know you, for one thing. You know, I have no idea what your root causes are.
You have to know the person.
But
I love that functional medicine emphasizes.
But I do know there's certain foundations that are true for everyone, regardless of whether you're having a weight loss issue or you've got some type of autoimmune disease or depression or whatever. There's always some foundations that always have to be in place. And I try not to always use, always or never, but I do when it comes to the foundations.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, and I guess we can talk about some kind of fun topics that people might be wondering as they're thinking about weight loss, might be considering. There's a lot of things that could go into that. First, probably being on the forefront of a lot of minds is weight loss medications. Ozempic, Wegovy, all those things. Would you just kind of give, I know you could probably talk about it for days.
I would just say absolutely not. Ozempic is not addressing the root causes of why you gained your weight. And it has some horrible side effects. The lawsuits have already started. I know patients personally who have had thyroid cancer, had to have their thyroids removed, and now are on thyroid replacement hormones for the rest of their lives, which is never the same as what your body produces. I know people who have ended up with pancreatitis and a whole other host of weird things that have happened to them. And everybody who stops it immediately gains the weight back, plus more, because when you're on Ozempic, you're losing muscle mass. And I kept hearing this from lots of personal trainers who were seeing it in their patients on Ozempic. They're still lifting weights, but they're not building any muscle, and they're actually losing it. So now you are in a worse state metabolically after being Ozempic than when you started, because now you have no muscle mass, or you've lost a lot.
Yeah.
And that right there makes me say absolutely never is it appropriate. And when someone will say, well, what about these people who are severely obese and, they could, die at any day? And I'm like, well, Ozempic could kill them too. Just maybe not quickly, but it's going to be a slow death. And there's just better ways to do it. And the same thing for the gastric sleeves. And all the gastric surgeries, I have heard horror stories about those. I have patients who have had that procedure, and every single one of them regrets it because they gained weight. They gained a lot of weight back, and now they have a whole host of new problems in addition to the ones that they had.
Yes. Well, yeah.
And I got in trouble one time for going off on that procedure by a former employee. After I was no longer working there, keep you in mind. Yeah. But I did a post about the gastric sleeve procedure, and the hospital administrator texted me. He was like, can you please take that post down? And I was like, well, I don't work for you anymore, so no.
Right.
Yeah. Who do you think you are?
Yeah.
You don't.
Well, it's hurting them. It's hurting their business.
Well, yeah, it should.
Yeah.
It's a horrible thing because, it makes a lot of money.
It does.
They were making $20,000.
What else is going? It's not like it's presented as like, here's your option, not like we're going to do all of this and then it's like we're going to run this functional lab. You don't hear we're going to run functional lab tests on you. We're going to figure out what's going on. We're going to make sure you're exercising and getting sunlight. And
here's the kicker: the surgeon drinks Diet Cokes. So this is why I no longer work at that facility. But yeah, I wanted to believe that being a, medical director for a cardiac rehab facility was a good thing. I thought that was good until you started looking at the nuts and bolts of what the patients are being taught. And it's still the same old mess. It's just a moneymaker at the end of the day, unfortunately, dressed up as something that is helping people. It is hard. And
It's hard to watch because you want it to be better.
It is. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really good stuff though. And, that's one thing that's probably pushed a lot by healthcare system, but there's also a lot that's being pushed right now on social media.
Yes.
So we can talk about some of those things. I mean, cortisol is always talked about. You see cortisol face a lot.
Cortisol belly, yeah.
Yeah, cortisol belly.
But they're never addressing why the HPA axis dysfunction is occurring.
Right. Or if it's low or high.
Or they just want to go right for the cortisol, but not for the mediators of why the cortisol is out of balance.
Right.
And while it can have some short-term gains, you will reach a point where it just does not work anymore. And people become so frustrated with that. Now, I'm not saying that's not the case with everybody, but I feel like they're getting closer to the root causes, but there's still more onion peeling left to do.
Yeah, and what's sad about what I see a lot with cortisol issues, one, they're not talking about if it's low or high, which I feel like is very significant to know.
Yes.
And two, it's always a supplement attached. So it's like what to take for cortisol belly, not what to address to remove the stressors that have contributed to this state for the past 10 years of your life. So those are, I feel like that's what I've been seeing a lot of.
They want to go straight for the supplements. And I mean, we have supplements for both high and low. And I have patients who are like, well, should I take this? I'm like, listen, are you doing, and I'm like, are you doing everything that we've recommended for you to address these things? And if they say, yes, I am, and I feel like they are, and I'm like, all right, this could provide some symptom relief for you, but you cannot in any means depend on this, because this is just for symptom relief. It's a natural way. But this is always temporary. Same thing with the ones who are, in that deep pit of HPA axis dysfunction where they need additional, bovine adrenal complex or something like that. And I know people who absolutely say this has helped me get out of the bed. Mm-hmm. And I'm not going to take that away from anybody. But at the same time, we've got to address what got you in the bed. So that's kind of my stance on that.
Yeah. Carnivore diet.
Yeah. So I'm not going to, so here's what I see often is people like, I not everybody, but I went carnivore and I feel so much better. Well, what were you eating prior to going carnivore? Because somehow they equate I'm eating meat, which is now making me feel better, versus I'm no longer eating these things.
No longer eating ultra processed food.
Or a bunch of sugar and all of that. And that temporary switch to meat, they may have been getting much more bioavailable protein and nutrients, which helped them feel better. Yeah. That could absolutely be the place. But like you said, they're no longer eating all the other stuff.
Right.
And I feel like that is probably what is occurring.
Right.
And I do know, reducing your simple carb and sugar intake, especially the added sugars, can go a long way in helping you with a lot of things, including weight loss.
Right. Yeah.
And sugar creeps into the diet in so many different ways. The simple carbs, even too many complex carbs. We're just doing too many carbs. Now, I will say the people in Europe, this is an interesting contradiction. Because I know many Europeans, and I have people who have some French friends who eat very healthy. I think Europeans in general eat much healthier than Americans. They don't have all the processed foods, and they're eating foods that don't have ingredients that they're completely banned in the EU and in most parts of Europe that we still are consuming over here. But they're eating more pastas and croissants But they're also, it's the quality of what they're eating, the amounts of what they're eating.
They're also
walking and getting sun. They're outside a lot more. And they have a tend to have a slower pace of life. So that needs to be taken into account too.
Yeah, and carnivore can be very therapeutic.
I'm gonna drink some water.
For a lot of people.
My Mountain Valley water.
Yeah.
Which I am a water snob, and we go to the source in Hot Springs and take about 50 bottles in a 5-gallon jug, and because your water matters. You don't want to be drinking tap water that has fluoride in it that we know impacts thyroid function. They used to use fluoride to treat hyperthyroidism, and now it's showing up in your water at amounts that were similar to what were given to reduce thyroid function. And we also know that fluoride impacts, at least the fluoride that they're putting into the water, is impacting IQ. Lots of studies.
And that's just what's out there. We don't know what else is going on.
Is in the water that they're not telling us about.
Yeah.
Which I do not trust them. I'm sorry. And I have plenty of reason not to.
It's a quick rant about that. I would say carnivore can be very therapeutic for a lot of people.
Yes, it can. Short term.
Short term. Like you've seen autoimmune reversals, a lot of, chronic skin conditions, even weight loss, very successful.
Yes, yeah.
But for most people, I feel like this is a fair statement to say, for most people, it is not helpful long term.
No, it's not. And if you think about how we've eaten ancestrally, at what time were we only eating meat? Now, that could be the case in the winter months for people in Northern Europe, where they didn't have a lot of produce growing around. It's winter, it's snowing. They had primarily animal fats and meat to sustain them through the winter months. And that's, seasonal eating if you think about it. So, and we're all different. Everybody's like, what diet should I do? I don't know. It depends on you. I know for me, I do better with more animal protein. Berries, I do great with blackberries, blueberries, any type of berries. Some lettuces here and there, and a little bit of root vegetables.
That's probably taken you a while.
It's taken me a long time to figure that out.
To know your body.
Yeah.
You have to slow down. How is this food making me feel? Instead of just grabbing, like we talked about before, convenience foods, but really noticing, okay, I had more meat today. My energy was up. Or I had more protein today.
Or I wasn't hungry.
Yes. Yeah.
Maybe
on the other extreme of I thrive on just some meat and, mainly, complex carbs, vegetables, fruits. But I think that's controversial too.
Well, it's your activity levels too,
Doing it, so.
It's phases and stages of life. It's how old you are. What are your hormones doing? Are you perimenopausal, menopausal? How active are you? What kind of stressors are going on in your life right now? There's a lot of things to consider. And so your diet can change a little bit depending on those stages and phases. And so you just kind of have to think about how you feel when you eat a certain way. I think a lot of people make the mistake of not eating adequate protein in the morning, which we know a lot of research points to that. It staves off. People tend to eat less during the rest of the day when they have that high quality animal. Yes, it's blood sugar regulation. Yeah, and that's why I'm a big fan of the glucose monitors, the continuous ones, because I feel like they're very educational for most patients. And just kind of, they're stress monitors too. You can see what foods do, but you can also see what is stress doing to you. And I know that at various points in my life when I know I had some severe HPA axis dysfunction, my blood sugar levels were crazy. They would dip down so low at night. It was waking me up. They were just going up and down, but it was because of the state of my HPA axis function that was dictating all that.
Which affects insulin, which affects weight, which affects, what we're talking about today. It's if anything, we just can see everything we talked about is just always interconnected. Like
Yeah.
I mentioned before.
And the last time I wore it,
affecting others.
I didn't have those peaks and valleys. It was more rolling hills because I'm in a place where, I'm not like that anymore. I've done a lot of healing, and it happened overnight. So, and that's what I'm trying to tell you is, for some of you, it's just not going to come off super quick like it will for others. But it will.
When you're doing the foundations.
On a regular basis.
Yeah, consistency.
Consistency is everything.
Yeah.
Don't fall for the quick fixes because they'll just backfire and you'll just be more and more frustrated, and you end up just doing more damage to your body when you do that.
Yeah, and there's probably a lot more we can cover with weight loss.
Oh my gosh!
Probably do a couple other episodes
Yeah.
regarding this topic. We have a lot more to cover, but just maybe give one piece of practical advice or steps to someone who's like, okay, I'm listening, I'm hearing you, that was a lot of information.
Yeah.
Stress, gut health, HPA access. What is one step that I can start with today? Because you gave some great wisdom, but what is something that they could start with?
There's not just one, I think there's a few. Okay, these are my top 3.
Yeah.
Calm down. I feel like people's nervous systems are so dysregulated, your body will not heal or lose weight in that state. So, nervous system regulation is a big one. It impacts your gut health, impacts your sleep. And so that often means slowing down, saying no, clearing your calendar, getting outside, deep breathing, praying, listening to God, having conversations with Him. Just slow down. That will help a lot of people with their HPA axis function. The other one is you have to treat your food like medicine because it absolutely is medicinal. And I know a lot of people will excuse, we went to Chick-fil-A a couple of times this week, and I got the salad, or it was just a grilled chicken, or I had some sweet tea, and I'm not saying occasional Chick-fil-A outings are gonna destroy everything, but you're gonna have to cut that out. They're not using good quality foods, and they're often very inflammatory, and they're just adding to the inflammation. So you have to really clean up your diet and get to a simple eating. No more convenience, and a lot of people, it's hard for them because they're used to convenience. They don't want to cook. They don't like to cook, or they feel like every meal has to be a home run. Well, it can be really simple, chicken breast, piece of steak, broccoli, or I don't know, piece of steak and then blackberries for dessert. I mean, that is just. Yes. I eat very simple like that. Like the other day, I had an avocado. I put salt and pepper, a little lime juice on it, and ate a few of these the Siete chips. I tear them into really small pieces when I dip it. I try to eat as little bit, but I gotta have something to dip. I was not hungry for 6 hours, and that's a big deal for me. Yeah. And so but that was like lunch.
Right. Yeah.
And I'm very good at listening to my body's hunger cues. If I'm not hungry, physiologically hungry, I'm not feeling, kind of. And a lot of people don't even know what hunger cues feel like anymore because they're just always snacking and shoving stuff in their mouth, or they've always got something, the Starbucks, and they don't even know what hunger feels like. But your body will let you know when it needs to eat, and a lot of people just don't even know what that feels like anymore because they're also dealing with a gut microbiome that is so out of balance and probably have yeast overgrowth that it's always screaming for sugar and carbs, so they're always hungry. And so that's another, I guess I hear that a lot. Yeah. I'm always hungry. And I'm like, yeah, because you probably stressed out and got candida overgrowth.
Yeah.
Your blood sugars are probably
Those are the things
crazy.
that's going through your mind when someone
Yeah, you're not
says
eating
something.
enough protein,
Yes.
you know? So slow down, address that. Just, you have to slow down, treat your medicine like food, get outside, and you've got to start making sleep a priority. Those are the top 3 things I have everybody start with.
Those are great and will make probably a world of difference.
Stop doing so much cardio when you're worn out and pushing through your workouts.
Oh,
You know,
sleep.
just
the
go
best.
rest. Don't ignore your body. It's trying to tell you something here. You know.
That's so key. Listening to your body and what's appropriate and what's not. It's just so important. Not listening to
because everybody's
what
getting
works for you, what works for me, but what does your body need in this season, and it could look different. My age, your age, all the in betweens. It's different seasons require different things. So your
Get off
body
the
will tell
phone.
you. Yeah.
Get off the phone because there's a lot of comparison
And go
going
listen
on.
to our previous
Yeah. Before you get off the phone, you know.
Yes. Yeah. Well, those are great, and I think just one thing to end on is, and we mentioned this a lot in the podcast, but it's just so great, is the Live Well Planner.
Yes.
Because if you don't know where to start or you need help doing it, that's the key.
Yep. Have a copy right here.
Yeah.
That's what it looks like.
Beautiful.
Fantastic value because it's not only just the planner, and it is a faith-based approach to living well, but the foundations, there's 20 podcasts that go along with it. We now have Live Well group coaching sessions that we're going to kick off again come New Year.
Yeah.
So I think that people really enjoy the group.
Group is great if you are someone who says, I'm entering the new year, I want to practice the foundations, everything that you're talking about. I know what I'm supposed to do. I just need help doing it. That's what the groups are for.
Mm-hmm.
You get intentionality, accountability, working through those boundaries maybe that you are hindering you from taking the next step. That's what the group is for.
Yeah, I know people that are doing it with you.
Yes.
And
walking through it together is so
supporting you, because it's it can be change can be hard sometimes, but it's possible, and the foundations are something that I don't care who you are as a patient who comes to me, no matter what your problem is, you will do the foundations. And that's why we developed this, because if you could do these, a lot of your problems may go away and you don't need to become a formal patient.
Such an affordable resource.
Yeah.
To, you do these things, likeliness of your symptoms, weight gain, all the things will go away. And if they are still there, then we can dive deeper into that. The planner is just such a great place.
Yeah, and we've had people who have said, this absolutely helped me. A lot of people do it as a family, and they're like, my family has benefited so much from this.
Yes. Do it as a family, as a couple.
Yeah, my kids don't have X, Y, or Z. My husband no longer has to deal with this issue. We've grown closer as a family, which I love to hear that.
That is so cool.
Yeah.
And even through the Christmas season, I've seen people say, okay, I'm getting this for all my kids because, I want them to experience this and go through it together. It's such a great gift. Not just Christmas, at any time of the year, just to be able to give that opportunity to someone. So
give the gift of health, right? Health it's a huge blessing, and it's something God wants us to all have. Yeah. So
that's awesome.
All right. Well, this was a good one.
Yeah.
I enjoyed this because I feel like it is something that is so needed in our society today.
People are asking so many questions about it.
Yeah, and there's so many struggles, and I'm not saying I have all the answers, but I have a lot of them.
Yeah.
All right. Well, next time.
See you next time.
I don't take nothing that a doctor don't prescribe. I just take Paxil, Xanax, Zolap, Flomax, morphine, Valtrex, Flow.